organizer, Ms. Tao, and he had an accident today also. In fact, we were supposed to be here like around 1 o'clock, but he couldn't. At that time, he was in the hospital with his little child. So, but fortunately, he and his wife has been able to make for this seminar. And Tao has been the main organizer who initiated and networked and get Neil to come here to give this seminar. So let's give them applause. Neil, it's all your time.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. And I'm glad you could all make time on this beautiful day outside on a Sunday away from your family. And because we're missing 2 speakers, maybe we'll cut it a little shorter so you can get back out and enjoy the sunshine. I thought I would do this presentation in Chinese, but then I remember I don't speak Chinese, so it'll have to be English. One of the people who couldn't make it today, she's with my company, Technovative. She's from China, and she's our data architect and knows a lot of this stuff, so I'm sad she couldn't make it. This is Murphy Patterson. He's our expert on reporting and the front end. So if any questions in that area comes up, he can handle those. The other person who is supposed to be here is from the company DataStax, which they're the enterprise version of Cassandra, which you may have heard of. So I will try to cover his slides. They're very interesting. It may be the most interesting high-tech tool out there right now. And it's getting a lot of interest. So we'll cover that as best we can. How many of you work with big data now? A couple hands. Is everybody in technology? More hands. Okay, so feel free to ask any questions. If I don't know, I'll get the answer later. Or other people in the room might know, so keep the dialogue going, and hopefully we'll have some fun. Technovative is a company I work for. They specialize in big data, data warehousing, report development, dashboards, CRM, anything to do with data. So it's very specific. We work with a lot of companies like Home Depot, UPS, Bell South, and AT&T, quite a few of the big companies in town. This is just a little bit about us. Those are the things I just mentioned where we have special areas. Big data is the future. A little bit about the history of big data. You all know who Google is. They handle lots of data. Yahoo handles lots of data. But they weren't satisfied with the tools that were available to deliver that information. So Google and Yahoo work together to create new tools that are the basis of big data. I mentioned Cassandra. That is a tool developed by, initially a white paper from Google and then developed by Yahoo. Google created MapReduce. Has anyone used that? A half a hand.
Just in class.
Oh,
In class for
Georgia Tech?
All right.
Okay. So we'll look a little bit at MapReduce. That was the brainstorm that started the big data movement. So it's just like the name sounds like. You're mapping data, then you're reducing it down to specific areas, so it's easy to find and use quickly. That's a very general way to put it. Google also created a big table, and that's a way of distributing data so that it can be found and quickly put together. Do any of you use standard databases now? Okay, which databases? Oracle?
Oracle, SQL Server, Teradata.
Okay, so you know those pretty well. We'll see how this is a little different. If you're using those, have you thought about using big data tools?
Not yet.
Is any thought in your it is different. Some companies are making that transition. So those discoveries led to Hadoop, which you've probably heard of, at least a few people. Hadoop is a very hot topic in technology now. Companies are thinking, I need Hadoop. What is it? So that's kind of doing it backwards, because they know they want it because everybody else is getting it. They don't know why they want it or what they'll do with it when they get it. So Yahoo built Hadoop from the MapReduce and Bigtable functions. So the key there is it's scalable. I don't know what level of interest you have, but the architecture for a big data layout is much different than an old-fashioned database. We'll talk about that with Cassandra a little bit later. But the ideas of disaster recovery, you don't need it anymore. ETL, you don't need it anymore. And there's a lot of advances that'll make life easier for you. And also using the MapReduce engine. Can you see that?
It's hard.
Okay, I was afraid of that. You will have this presentation available later. So Tal will make sure you know where it is on your website. At the top, you've got what you were just saying, the massively parallel processing databases like Teradata. There are so many tools that every vendor is developing now to deal with this situation. Because this became obvious that this is going to be a really important area and where all the data is going to end up, not everything, but every company like IBM, Teradata, they're all developing their own tools. SAP, they're all Oracle, they're all working to make tools that will do what these tools do. So you're going to see lots of different tools talked about. So what is it? I mean, there's tools, but why? Well, it's been defined as 3 V's. I've added a 4th V. Volume. Obviously, the name tells you. There's a lot of it. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's more data than ever. Velocity. Do you know what that means? What's it mean?
The data are all different in format, source, constructor, everything.
Okay, right? That's the variety. But the velocity also is, it's just fast. One of the drivers is you need it quickly.
Right.
In the old database world, it's often batched once a night. So it's not real time. And for years, companies have been saying, I need it real time. They didn't know what they meant, but now they can get it real time. The variety, exactly, all kinds of data. Stuff we never even thought would be coming. And veracity is the new V. That means, is it real? Is it true? Is it good data? Often that's not been the case. Data is also, this movement to big data is often called a tidal wave or a tsunami. It's a lot of numbers coming, and people in IT have to figure out how to react to it. You've still got the old data, so everybody's got those old databases, the Teradata and the Oracle and whatnot. It's still going to be there. They're not going away. You got to figure out how to work it together. And those are strong in the structured data world. So they still have their purpose. The key is now we've got all this new stuff, unstructured data. What's unstructured data?
Frame file, XML,
Logs.
logs,
Text,
video,
emails, videos,
Mhm.
Twitter feeds, just about anything. RFIDs. Well, I actually have a list of stuff there. Sensors. You know the little barcodes on products?
UPC code.
And well, RFIDs are going to be the future style where you've got a big warehouse of things like an Amazon warehouse. That feeds every couple seconds into the database. Every few seconds. So every time somebody moves a book or a CD or something, that's being tracked in the system now. So they'll say, 10 of these books just went to St. Louis. And it's all, every few seconds it's being updated without any human interaction. And the key is to make sense of it all. Most of that new data, probably 98% of it, will not have any value at all. But you don't know that until you figure it out and look at it all and say, this is the good stuff, this is junk, but we can filter that out. You can see the little guy drowning in data there.
So, Neil, a good
Yes.
question. Back to the point you said, the junk data. Sometimes the junk for one company could be treasure for the other company.
Exactly. It depends on your business case. Maybe it's junk now, but it won't be junk in the future. Maybe you don't realize the value in it. That's where analysis of your data comes in. And that also leads to the data governance, which tells you what data you need now, what is the value, analyzing it for as you need it for your company. Some of this data, like the tracking every few seconds, obviously the value of that is only minutes long because it's changing so quick. Some data you want to keep for years and years, but all that should be understood up front. How much data are we talking about? These are just some fun facts. Twitter, every day, those 140 character limits are producing the equivalent of 8,000 copies of War and Peace. You know the book War and Peace is like this big? 8,000 of those every day in just Twitter feeds. YouTube has several hours worth of video added every second. The internet is now over 10 billion pages. That's all cataloged and archived. Photos. There are more photos every day created than the first 100 years of photography. This is a new one for me. Femto photography. Has anybody heard of that?
No.
Tech students? No?
7.
Hmm?
Nano no.
Femto.
Femto.
I had never heard of it either. But it's created recently at MIT, and it takes 1 trillion photographs per second.
Wow, that's a lot.
Trillion per second. And the value of it is they can track the speed of light. They can track light as it's moving. But somehow, and I don't even get this yet, you can take pictures around corners. Somehow it tracks it so you can see what's in there even though the door's closed. Anyway, they are storing trillions of images just through this one few seconds of photography. It would take so much storage.
What about this light field camera? You know that from Stanford? It takes 3D.
Yes. I think that's
different. I mean, this is from Stanford. I think they already have a product on the market. Basically, you take one photo shot, and then later on you can look from different angles. It's a 3D taking the whole field.
very similar because this is used for 3D also.
This is a few years ago.
Okay. It's very interesting stuff that they're coming up with, but they couldn't have done that a few years ago because you couldn't have kept all those images.
No, they have done this a few years ago.
Well, I mean, a few years before.
Okay.
Of course, we all have smartphones all over the world now, and all those apps are recording data. Every time you move around, you're making GPS data, because it is tracking you. Radio telescopes create an exabyte of data every day. Satellites, RFIDs. Okay, so what does it all add up to? The year 2020, which is only 6 years away, there will be 8 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 21 zeros, or 8 zettabytes of data in the world. That's a lot of data. So that's what we have to deal with. And that's why all these tools are coming out. There it is, that's that number there.
So you recommend we buy some stock from the disk provider?
Yeah. I did read one interesting thing, that a $600 external storage device can now hold all the music in the world. So storage, that's one of the keys enabling this. Storage is cheap now, and it's much bigger. This is in the news now. The government, and I'm talking about the US government, is tracking us. And I worked for a phone company 12 years ago, and all that stuff that's being talked about now, I was part of that back then, and they denied it back then. But they did have people's phone records. Oh, don't record that part. Now, people are hearing about the NSA now, right? With Mr. Snowden and telling everybody. But actually, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, they built the world's largest storage building. It's like several football fields out in the middle of the desert for them to store everything. So those 21 digits of numbers, the government is taking a lot of that and just storing it there. Nobody knows exactly how it'll be used, but mostly it's just archived. I'm not trying to make anybody paranoid or suspicious of the government. I'm sure other governments are doing similar things. So it's not new, but now they have better capabilities. Any questions so far? I skipped the section called data modeling. I don't know if anyone, maybe 1 or 2 people are interested in that. In the old world, there's normalization of data. With this, you're denormalizing the data. So that's a key difference. That may mean something to some people. I don't want to lose the others. So here's normalized and the new version. If you know what that is, you'll see the difference. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. So why do companies care? And I assume that's why you're here. You all work for companies. It's a hot area. The hardest thing that companies, every company I talk to, they want to get into this. They want to explore. They want these tools. There's one big problem. What do you think it is?
Security.
Hmm?
Security?
Well, that's a different issue. But that's a good idea.
They don't know how to do it.
Sorry?
They don't know how to do it.
Exactly. They can't find people who know this stuff. So they say, yeah, we'll buy it, but where am I going to get people that can help us do it? Well, that's what my company does. And luckily, we're ahead of the curve. But that's where other people are quickly developing an interest, because as a career field, this is a really good area to be in. But back to companies, what do they do on the social network? Why does a typical company like Home Depot, why do they want to use the social network?
Branding.
Branding.
Promotion.
Understand people's behavior and make them better business decisions.
Very good. So all that requires data and understanding what the interactions with the customer are. They're also monitoring sentiment. So what does sentiment mean on the internet?
Mood, what people are thinking about, feeling about. Right?
Time.
Exactly. So if you're a Home Depot and somebody says, well, I went into this store and I got bad service, they want to be aware of that. So they can now using these tools, bring in all those comments, whether it's a Twitter or Facebook or wherever. They're monitoring all the negative comments or the positive comments and responding to those. That's very important. There's a couple of examples where companies did not react properly. Do you know who Kevin Smith is? He's an actor, movie director, and he's really fat. So he went on an airplane, and Southwestern, and they kicked him off the plane because he was too fat. So he sent a Twitter, "I'm angry at this airline." Well, because he's famous, that everybody heard about it and was angry at the airline. That had a very negative impact on that company. So you want to know as soon as those things are out there, because they're out there and you've got to know they're out there. There was another one where a meat company, they used some additive. So there's a YouTube video called Pink Slime about 2 years ago. That video was so, it wasn't anything really bad, but people didn't understand that. They see pink slime, and it looked disgusting. That company's out of business now because of that video. So by monitoring all that activity on the internet, you are able to stop these from getting out of hand. I've been consulting with a hotel company, and they are very actively reading TripAdvisor reviews and things like that, and Facebook. And if somebody has a bad experience, right away they send them a coupon and they say, "We're sorry," and they're reacting quickly. And that really helps make a better image for the brand. A few years ago, one of the big airlines had terrible service. People complained all the time. The president of the airline would call these people and say, "I'm sorry." These people, even though the service didn't get really better, they didn't care. They were happy. They kept using the airline just because the president said, "I'm sorry." That had such a big impact on them that they loved the airline, even though it was bad service. That's how critical these things are. And if you're on Facebook or something like that, and you read a comment, or your friend, somebody you know, is making comments, it means a lot more to your thought about a company or product than just a review in a newspaper or something like that. It carries a lot more weight. Any questions there? And that's where the real time comes in, part of it. You can react very quickly. If a tweet goes out and it's not good for your product, and you know it within a few hours and you can talk to that person, that's an important, you got to be very quick. Another case with that hotel company, we're looking at people who surf the web on their website. Say they're looking at Hong Kong, and they say, "Oh, I'm looking at hotels in Hong Kong." Within a few minutes, then they leave the site, they don't book anything. Within a few minutes, they're going to get an offer on a hotel in Hong Kong, just because we knew they were there and they're interested. "Oh, are you sure you don't want to go to Hong Kong? Because we'll give you an extra 10% off or something." So that ability to get them before they've really lost interest is important. Now, if you're a company that is using data correctly, companies are moving towards something called data-driven decision-making. In the past, companies have lived or died on their executive gut feeling, instinct, guesses, randomness. They often didn't know what they were doing. Even a company like Apple, Steve Jobs had a long, successful career out of understanding what companies wanted, what the consumer wanted. But not many companies have done it that well. So with big data, you can understand better what the customer really wants. You can be very specific to everything you're doing, to how well your advertising is doing, if your promotions are working or not. You can understand all that with data. You don't have to guess anymore.
Neil, does that also mean that the company doesn't have to pay those top executives the hundreds of millions of dollars anymore?
Well, they're going to deny that. Instead, they're going to have to pay their analysts a lot.
There you go.
Which is better for us, right? A key there is data management must be flexible. To make that concept work, companies have to be willing to put aside their intuition. If the executive thinks, I like this product, I'm sure it's a killer, but the data says no, and he's got the right data, then those managers have to set aside their thinking and really trust the data. It's about how you use it. Use it as a strategy. Build your company around that. This is where our innovation, our data tells us these are the new products people want in the future. That has to guide your decision making. It'll come down to analytics. That's the career area that's really going to be important. Can you see this comic? This is a cute one. Good news, our analysis, 1.3% of the people we sent an email offer bought it. What about the ones we didn't email? Well, 1.8%. Oh, that's too much information. Let's not count that part. In this example, and this is a company I was just working with, this is true to them. They sent out a $10 million ad campaign. They got back information that said, well, 22% clicked on the link and bought the offer. Well, they thought that was great. They're celebrating bonuses. And then we did a little more analysis, and if they had never sent the offer, 25% would have bought it. They said, well, let's not tell anybody that, because they want their bonuses. Now, every company is going toward this goal. Some will be good at it. Others will not have any idea what they're doing. Most companies really don't know what they're doing, but it's all over the range. But that's the competitive advantage. The companies that do it well will incredibly outperform their rivals who don't do it well. So even though it may seem expensive to them or a lot of effort, if they don't do it, they're going to fall behind. This helps them understand their products, which is critical, and services, and their customers. And that's the whole package in business. And you can also understand how your competitors are matching up against you. Top companies use more sources of data and are more likely to expand beyond just basic data than the companies who are not good performers. Any thoughts there?
So is that create some competitive disadvantage for smaller company?
Yes. It's the disruptive energy. So all along you may have in an industry one company that's the leader. But if they don't approach this correctly, then that's the opportunity for small companies to leapfrog them. And you'll start seeing that quite a bit. That's a very good point. Because some of the tools we're going to look at are not that expensive, surprisingly. It's, again, the resource shortage that has to be dealt with. But once you get this in place, a small company could go way ahead of a big company based on just their analysis.
But there's also the danger that you put too much trust on the data, because sometimes the social networks, all this customer feedback, and they're not telling the truth, or the customer doesn't know what they want. And for example, like Steve Jobs used to quote Henry Ford, that if you ask my customer what they want, they'll tell me they want a faster horse wagon, because they don't know the car. So they really, innovative company actually lead the customer. They create something they believe is great, and they educate the market. So that's, you know, so you
That's
have
a
to trust
great
the
point.
instinct as well.
You got to do it right. So if you do it right, that's your advantage. If you do it wrong, you could go way down the wrong path.
So what would be some non-business functional areas that the companies would focus their efforts to do the big data or handle the big data?
We're going to look at several cases around that. Hold on for that for a minute. If I don't get to that, we'll talk about it some more, because that's the key area. This is just some more information on, we see these are the companies who are very successful in their industry, and you can see that they got advantage by doing business intelligence well. And the point of this slide and this slide is that the companies who put the investment in, put the investment in people in, and set this up right, do end up performing much better overall than their competitors. This needs to go to every CEO in the world. We're still going to get there. The predictive analytics is how you end up using that data. Does anybody do predictive analytics?
We forecast.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's how you get your insight. And right now, a lot of them are starting to call themselves data scientists. That's the cool new job title now. If you're a data scientist, you can pretty well get any job you want with any company. Some of them aren't that good, but the really good ones are worth their weight in gold, because that's really where the value of all this investment will come from. And you can always rely on Dilbert. That data is wrong. We'll use this other data. Well, that's also wrong. Can you average them? You know, people who don't really get the data say, well, do something.
Question, Neil.
Yes.
On that data scientist job, is that a more of a technical job or a business job?
Great question. A lot of people think you have to be like a rocket scientist to do it. Some of the people who claim the title are from all walks of life. Some have been real data geniuses, but others are just business analysts who understand data a little bit. Some are more on the business side, who understand what the business needs. It's really a combination. And I've seen studies that say it should be like 50-50. You really have to know what the business wants, be able to pull all that knowledge together, but also bring the data side into it on how to best use the data.
So it's a cross area.
It's very much across. If you're too strong on one or the other, you're probably not going to be a really good data scientist.
So basically, the data scientist is not a training. You really do the biofunction, or you transfer to another one.
Yes, but if you're really good, you can probably be pretty versatile, flexible around it. Being able to talk to the customers in the business, that's very helpful.
But from the technical point of view, there's a lot more focus on like math or statistics.
Yes, yes. A lot of them come with a stat background. Quite a few colleges now, Northwestern and some others, have very good programs in predictive analytics. So if you can get a degree in that, you'll be really well set. Having that data shows relationships. So that's how you approach it. You tie together different functions like the environment of the data, the demographics of the customer, the health, financial, all that can be pulled together to summarize your life, as one example. There's a new tool that will analyze you, all those factors, and you can sign up for this. You give them your DNA. They will break down your DNA, all your medical records. And the point here is that it's studying your data all the time. And if it thinks you're going to get sick, it'll tell you before you get sick. So you'll get an email saying, you're going to get sick tomorrow. Go to the doctor. Well, I feel good. No, go to the doctor. So we'll see how that develops, but that's an interesting area too. And on the business side, you can tie everything about a customer together. That's the 360-degree view of the customer. When you develop that understanding, that does drive your product innovation and interaction with the customer. Another comment here. Sales go up this month. Why did sales go up? Well, I did a great display. I did this, my emails, my advertising. Next month, sales go down. Well, it's his display, his email, his... Blame the other guy. With data, you can't do that. Here's where we're going to get to some use cases. These are just a few things I grabbed that I'm aware of. Your car will recognize you. So we're getting there now. Google's working on a car that drives itself. That'll be great, won't it? You can get in your car and take a nap. Well, this car will keep you awake. There's a new version. It wakes you up. It knows when you're getting sleepy. So it sends a little shock to your system. If you're drunk, it does something else. I'm not sure what. But it also, if you're getting in the car, it'll say, oh, Neil's getting in the car. He's the owner. So it'll unlock. It'll start up. It'll put the seat in my position, put the temperature the way I like it. My favorite music stations, all that will be instant. So that's the kind of thing every product's going to move toward, that kind of taking care of us, pampering us. This is a project I'm involved with now where you go to Publix and you're walking down the aisle and you need bread. On your phone, you can have a phone list. It knows you've bought bread before. When you're walking down the aisle, it'll put on your phone, oh, here's a 10-cent, 20-cent coupon on bread, your favorite brand. And as you walk around the store, you'll get all these coupons and offers and promotions. So that's kind of fun stuff. And that has to be real time, right? You can't send yesterday's technology. 2 days later, you get an email saying, well, here's a coupon for bread. Well, it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's when you're in the bread aisle, it can give it to you. That's important. For certain people, driving through the drive-thru at McDonald's, it'll know as you're approaching the drive-thru, this guy likes a Big Mac and fries. That's what he always orders. And it'll say, would you like your usual? And you don't even have to order anymore. We talked about the healthcare when you need it. A little more on that. It will tell you, based on analysis, you may have kidney problems in the future, or you may have a weak heart, or it'll understand your parents' DNA and the whole history. It ties it all together. And it'll schedule what you need in the future for your heart, for different things, whatever diseases you might be susceptible to.